what to do with the paper letters, I must consult with my family, which is scattered to the four corners of the globe.
Welcome everyone to Conversations, Art and Cinema. We were just watching Beyond Paper by the amazing Oana Suteu Khintirian. Wow, thank you so much for such a wonderful film that explores family, identity, immigration, memory. You managed to bring in Borges, take us to so many different landscapes, transition between all of them with poetry and image, and really teach me a lot about what freedom means. You know, I was the other week we were interviewing Wendy Brown, and we asked her what she thought freedom meant for her, and I was just so amazed when Gian said in the documentary that a library is the symbol of freedom. And it just blew my mind. And I will never, ever think of a library in a different way again. So thank you so much for that and welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Pirooz, for inviting me. And thank you for giving the space to this documentary. And thank you all for watching and being here.
To start us off, I just wanted to ask, I noticed that you had a lot of different repetition all throughout. One was the repetition of the words rock, paper, cloud.
Mm-hmm.
And we also had the music from, it sounded like it was a Radiohead song, so I don't know how you got that Radiohead piece, as well as it was almost like as each segment would pass, then you would give us a little poetic interlude that helped us connect between the two moments.
But the obsolescence of books poses a huge challenge to the transmission of knowledge. What is progress if not an ambiguous adventure?
And then the edit would somehow give us something on movement, and then the character, whether it was you or someone else, would be moving through a different landscape. So the first point I noticed it was at 26 minutes when you started talking about the sand and remembering and forgetting. So is that something that you were thinking about as you were making, like, oh, okay, this piece of the puzzle, I'm going to cut to sand here with this poem, or did you find it later?
Well, actually, the film had a very long research period. It really took about 10 years to get to the circle around the questions that I had started with. So by then I had acquired kind of a language within the film already, in which I knew that there were certain metaphors, if you want, that I wanted the film to carry that could not be understood unless we had made a little bit of we had already engaged in the road. We were on our way.
But remembering and forgetting are two sides of the same coin.
Actually, it's a very interesting comment. I don't think I've, really thought about it that way. The film was, I mean, in order for poetry to be able to, in order for me to be able to move to that metaphorical level, I had to first set the tone and put people in the track of my thinking such that they can actually resonate to what I was saying. So if I would have been able to just do a metaphorical film or like a poetic film about these very crucial discussions around knowledge and writing, reading, I think I would have loved to just dived right into it, but I knew that there was a scaffolding that somehow was needed to actually get to that point where we are ready to take on what is being said and understand, different the poetry with the depth of the reading. I think that's more like it. And the diversity of the places in which we filmed came out of this this thought of coming from something that's very personal and moving towards universal themes. So therefore I try to create this universality out of these puzzles of different places. So this is how it moves from one place to the other in showing different facets of the same kind of concept, but at the same time surprising, kind of not finding yourself, I hope, in unexpected places.
And also in humorous ones. I noticed at the end of the film, when we have that sort of the denouement, and it's like, oh, okay, libraries are beautiful, and we're in Buenos Aires, and we have this moment, and everyone's experiencing it, and it's beautiful, and then it cuts to Internet Archive, and it's just the data banks, So
Yeah.
in contrast, so we have that as well, which I thought was just amazing. Did
Well, that's
you?
actually, I started the film with editing that sequence. I mean, it was during the pandemic, we got to the point where, I mean, I had to edit, and I was alone at home, and I just kind of like it. A lot of the shooting that we still had to do, or we planned to do, like we were going to China and Turkey, and it got canceled because of the pandemic. And then then I started with that sequence. I just for the fun of it on my home computer, because I couldn't go to the NFB. And that's when I knew that there was a film because of that juxtaposition. So thank you for pointing it out.
Oh, that's great. I thought that was just so brilliant and so funny. I just started laughing out loud when I saw it. The other thing that struck me the most was this connection with the gesture of handwriting and how important it was to your family and how important it was to you to capture those letters. And it brought me back to my childhood, actually, because
Oh,
when I was first learning cursive, and English was not my first language, so I had to work
yeah.
so hard to learn English and cursive. But
Oh, wow.
it became my teacher didn't know why I was actually taking so long on my cursive. And what ended up going on was that I thought of it as drawing. So
Ah.
I would spend hours just doing the perfect, almost calligraphy, to the point where after they noticed that I was doing it, Mrs. English said that I would write all the letters home to all the students because my penmanship was so good. But when I saw that, it for me, I was like, oh yes, that's why I love having handwriting on my films. Actually, I love to put or to have handwriting anywhere. It makes it so tactile. It makes it feel so real. And the fact that you connected that to memory was also very powerful for me. Can you talk a little bit about that, the memory and handwriting, and how you discovered that in the process?
Yeah, I mean, the fact is that, as I said, the film has a scaffolding of research that it's like the iceberg that you only see the top. And actually, the research that was done, that I find quite fascinating, on the haptics of writing and how, maybe, from Proust, the Madeleine, and how that is a proof of I mean, it's based on the fact that by the time when Proust was writing this, À la recherche de temps perdu, his famous series of novels, he was actually, he knew that there was a connection between memory and, um, scent or taste in the case of the Madeleine, and other senses. So the way we remember things is with these strong sensations. If there isn't a sensation that's associated with memory, it gets lost. So you will say, well, this is the difference apparently in also with handwriting as opposed to like typing on a computer, because just the opposition that the pen has, the hand has on the paper as it moves the pen along, just the simple friction of the surface creates enough of a tension, enough of an obstacle to that the sensation would actually make the handwriting a mnemonic act. So it's not just that. This is one aspect of it, but there is also, you know, the way we relate to the empty page. And actually, this was at the beginning of my idea. I felt that there was something that was changing in the relationship, our own relationship with our memory. Then I couldn't actually pinpoint at the beginning. And this was what drove, like, what was my drive to make this project. It's to find out ultimately through this process of filmmaking, what is it that, how can you talk about that? What is it actually? And so handwriting was one of the things that, yeah, definitely is reshaping, in our relationship to our memory.
C'est mon oncle, oui. Les familles, généralement, ici, elles sont classifiées. Il y a les guerriers, il y a les marabouts, il y a les griots. C'est la stratification de la société. Et nous appartenons à cette lignée de lettrés, en quelque sorte.
إذا هذا هو أصغر حجم في المكتبة. هاي الكراسة اللي فيها من الأسطول.
Ce mode d'école est terminé pratiquement depuis qu'il y a l'impression.
لا النقل الآن لم يكن موجودا. حتى
ce procédé n'existe plus.
حتى l'encre اللي مات الموجود.
Même l'encre
وفيه نوع أحمر.
qu'on utilisait pour les manuscrits, elle n'existe plus. Il y a des encres chimiques.
والتي نخطهم بالمداد ما نجرنا الاستيلوهات هذا اسمهم.
Depuis qu'il y a l'impression, ça attire les manuscrits. Et on a de fortes craintes que la numérisation ne tue le papier lui-même. C'est une évolution.
Yeah, so thank you so much
Elle peut être positive ou négative, vu d'un côté ou de l'autre.
Excerpt is actually one of the key points in the film for me, and I was talking about the things that didn't make it in the film, you know, that one of the characters that I wanted to invite was Michel Serres, who wrote this book called Petite Poussette. He passed away. That's the point. He actually couldn't be in the film, but he was talking about, this is a discussion that was very much present in La Petite Poussette, which is basically about then how do we relate to knowledge when knowledge is out there on the web, or so people think, right? But there is a difference between knowledge and information, and I think that's what Abdelrahim Hajin helped me bring about in the film. And it was unexpected, actually, because as I said, my intention was to interview Michel Serres, but Michel Serres passed away before I actually started the film, because it took a very long time to raise the budget for the film. It's a costly production, and people weren't ready to make a film about this transition because it wasn't actually happening for quite a while. People thought that's never going to happen, you know, that we'll never forget how to handwrite, you know, things like that. So, by the time I got into production, a lot of the people that I would have wanted to interview for some of these like key questions that would have answered this passed away. One was Michel Serres, and another one was Umberto Eco, if you know the famous writer of The Name of the Rose, who also wrote a book called This Is Not the End of Book with Jean-Claude Carrière, who is a founder of FEMIS, the big cinema school in and he's a critic and also a media critic. And so I thought that I didn't know how will this question come about in the film, you know? I had the feeling that it will just not be possible to talk about it, although for me it seemed really quite essential. And then in Mauritania, when we went to Mauritania, a lot of my research was Googled, you know, so Mauritania was going to be just like one sequence. I didn't know how much I'm going to unveil there. And then when we went there and we started meeting people, I had the feeling that maybe there is that with Abdelrahim Hajin, who I had never met before the interview, that maybe he's one person who I could bring about this idea of like what this difference between embodied knowledge and what we are finding on the net, and then which actually is information. So there is a difference between information and knowledge. Anyway, so just before he said what you just heard him say, we had talked about Michel Serres. So I said, you know, because when you do interviews for a project like this, you kind of have to choose the way you are going to carry the interview. So I have done so much research that I knew how or what angles, more or less, certain characters are going to bring to the film. And I had already kind of like edited in my head. But I was adopting a position of naivete, of you know, such that I get in the films the answers to the questions that I wanted to bring about, right? And so I talked to Abderrahim Hajin about Michel Serres, and I said, so what do you think? You know, although I knew that obviously that their culture is one of remembering, of embodied knowledge, of, you know, that the library that he had on his shelf, he has it in his mind as well. He's able to answer these questions as you heard it in the interview. So then he just came spontaneously. So he just told me this, and I was just, as he was saying, I was just saying, yes, you know, he's the voice that is going to carry that kind of, you know, that it was in me that I was able to go and reach out for something that was in him. But it's also, I found it so profoundly, well, kind of disturbing, but also profoundly interesting that he passed away like 2 weeks after, just like Michel Serres, just like Umberto Eco. It was this generation change that, you know, it almost felt like I was chasing after unicorns, you know. It was that kind of feeling. And yeah, it was, I have goosebumps just now.
I have them too. The other thing for me is, I mean, there's a magic to this, right? This film is magical. It's so magical, right? And the other connection is to your ancestors, right? That runs and flows through this. So for me, I did see the connection to Armenia, to Istanbul, all in those landscape sequences as well. So were you aware of that happening with the Arabic, which they were reading, which was also, I saw, it was Farsi, so that was
Yeah,
interesting
that's
too.
amazing. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, actually, I didn't realize. I didn't realize, and I actually have a document that I was going to show in the film, and it's part of which is a diploma of my great grandfather during the Ottoman Imperium, and he was a doctor, and he was Armenian, but received the beautiful document, signed by the Sultan. And I was going to, and this was on our wall for many, since I always knew it there, just because of the beauty of the signature. And I wanted to be part of the film because in itself, it was an interesting comment on how we hold on to this document, which was in Turkish, Ottoman Turkish, right? And yet, not knowing the history of the Armenian genocide and that we were part of it, so anyway, but that part in the film was going to be actually filmed in Istanbul, in Galata, with Orhan Pamuk, who is a Nobel Prize winner and he wrote a series of amazing novels, one of them being My Name is Red. And so Orhan Pamuk had accepted to be in the film, but the pandemic happened. So then he, that was it for Istanbul, and the Museum of Innocence was going to be part of it. So that's where I was going to make the link with the Ottoman calligraphy, the boats floating on the Bosphorus, and all of that. It didn't happen. But this summer I was invited in a festival in Castellorizzo in Greece, and the island where I was, it was just in front of the Turkish shore. And it's so amazing because in the history of Castellorizzo, we see that the Turkish city across, and actually, yes, if you go at the genocide, it's funny because there is mention of that particular city in the newspaper cuttings from the time of the genocide. And I was there, invited unknowingly, it's all somehow, once you find yourself in this right place, it just kind of, these connections start to happen. And you just, there are these resonances that I didn't know but the film kind of brought about. Yeah. So thank you for pointing that out. And
Yeah,
another beautiful moment was actually when I was showing it in Granada, which was the beautiful citadel. It was shown at La Alhambra, the beautiful palace of the Moor kings, and so it had another resonance again. Yes. Sorry, I think I caught you.
no, it's okay. I'm just so excited about this film. Last week we were talking to John Jost, the filmmaker, and
Oh,
he was
wonderful.
talking a little bit about his process. And it was fascinating for me because he was telling me he really doesn't have a script. And he just allows for things to sort of happen. He'll get his actors together, and then he'll tell them, "I don't know what we're gonna do." And then he says, "Really, it's a puzzle piecing." And to me, it sounds the processes sound very similar from that film to this one. His process to yours. It's like you were uncovering. You had, of course, there's a lot of research. It's a different process as well, but there's a sort of a finding, there's a parallel and a similarity here that once you're on the road or the path, you're saying that you find sort of it's almost like the dowsing rod takes you in certain directions, and you're sort of feeling it and moving. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, in a sense, I just unfortunately, well, fortunately or unfortunately, but this is the reality of financing, especially in documentary. It's so hard to get off the ground, the budget, and I um I now am working on a film that's has a very different approach where also because my main character is 82 years old, so I feel like I don't have 10 or 20 years, So I got equipment and I'm filming, knowing that, I mean, hoping that eventually the film will the budget will be raised and I'll be able to continue and also to, you know, get back my investment. But the thing with Beyond Paper is that it's funny that it looks so, and it's good that it looks so spontaneous, but it's actually it's incredibly researched, yes, and scripted. It has a 50-page script, and almost all the sequences are from, I mean, yeah, all the sequences are from the script, exception of those that I could not film, like the calligraphy in the streets in China and the Turkey part. But what was fantastic and interesting as well, because this is research mostly done in Google, so I couldn't go to Mauritania before, for instance, before the shoot. And so that's where exactly, as you pointed out, the film had started to become alive, and where answers were building by themselves, right? And situations were kind of unfolding because I had that preparation in me. I had the film in me. So in a sense, this, how your attention changes because you know that that's what you needed. You just kind of like, oh, I'm going to take this, like if you know what you need, you go in in a market and it's just kind of like, everything is there. But if you start thinking, oh, okay, what am I going to cook tonight, and you go in a grocery shop, it's like it's different, right? So in the sense, this film was really kind of in Canada we have this type of it's called research creation. It's like arts-based research in ABR, I think it's in the States, and the practice-based research in England. That's about it's a kind of the process that describes this film. So there's and it was kind of iterative. So I went to the research, then I done some shooting, and then I was like continuing with and writing and so on. But it was so long that I knew where I stood. I had the film in my head, and I was just kind of it just kind of happened after. But yeah. Does it make sense?
Yes, it makes perfect sense. It's the perfect hybrid between having something fully written and you know exactly what you're going to do, but you left just enough room. And it reminds me very much of the way that I perform as an actor too. So I'm curious if you got that also from your dance background or filming with dance as well. So that idea of if you bring a little bit of the improvisation into the line, then it keeps the line fresh or it keeps the moment fresh. So it's almost like that was part of the process in a way, or maybe I'm just, I don't know if this was at all connected to the process at all.
Yeah, it's very interesting because, yes, as you pointed out, I worked with, prior to doing this documentary, I worked with, I did dance films, and I also worked with Cirque du Soleil on documentaries that were, where I did have to conform to a certain choreography and then, retranslate. However, the interesting thing with documentary is that you can plan as much as you want, but then you are faced with real people and reality. So there, people say, and that's there are certain stages in which you lose the film, like, so you write a script and then you go and film, and then, as you know, like the first assembly, you feel that you lost the script and you lost the film, and so somehow then after you start working and, oh, okay, you found the film, at the first rough cut, and then when you continue, oh, at the end, when you look at the film, it's like, wait a second, this is actually exactly how I planned, So there is something about that, but you have to, I think of Guy Debord, and his sense of like getting lost uh, and finding then something else, and somehow in documentary I find that something else has an emergent uh, quality to it, as much as it has also something that lays in the prior experiences. So what the accumulation of sedimentation of maturity with the subject, I think.
Well, thank you so much for being our guardian of memory. You truly are. And I could just keep going forever, but I realize I've talked too much. And we have students waiting to ask questions. And please ask questions about editing, writing, directing, anything. Whoever wants to start us off, please introduce your names and say hello.
Thank you.
Oh, I can start. Hello, my name
Hi,
is
Zaya.
Nazaya. I'm a fifth year student here at the U of R, and I major in accounting, or that's what I have my major in. But I study film because I want to make films that also teach like financial lessons, like having meaning to the stuff that I make.
Awesome.
And I think my question is, I wrote down a couple things as you were talking, is that when do you start thinking about editing in the filmmaking process? Like, do you
Uh-huh.
wait until you have all the footage together, or are you always thinking about it as soon as you think about the story?
Yeah, I would go with the latter. I'm also a professional editor, so I worked with many other like documentaries as a professional editor, and also most of the time I'm asked to come in the process quite early, actually, from the right now sometimes is from the concept, before the script is even written, and that happens with both documentary, animation, fiction as well. It's editing is, but I think that also differs. There are some people who would, and it also depends on the kind of the context in which you are in. But yeah, editing is like writing. So you think about it. You have to think about it when you film, because I mean, how is going to cut? How do you have enough footage for the sequence? I mean, sometimes um, I receive rushes from early in the shoots and the directors asking me, okay, so do I have enough footage? And I'm giving examples of other people than me because, of course, because I'm an editor, I always think. I mean, there is no way I edit my daily experiences. Is not like, you know, I can't separate from that persona anymore. You know, I think now on the contrary, I'm a PhD student parallel to this, and I'm thinking about, you know, time in terms of what I learned through the experience of editing, you know, of how the construction of time and so on, and movement as well, and space. So, but for a director going into the process, I think, yeah, one needs to think of how things will come about, and it's good to talk to your editor if you can, you know, because they may raise up questions or ways of doing things that could be both liberating and also perhaps adding some constraints, but like enabling constraints, you know. Yeah, that's how I think about it.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's
Hi,
Audrey. I'm a
Adrian.
senior at University of Rochester. Um, I had a question about when you're interviewing these people for the documentaries, how do you like get someone to talk more philosophically, I suppose, about their topic? Because like I mean the idea of this film is a pretty philosophical idea of like where are we going with knowledge and how we
Yeah.
record it. What did you find that difficult to get them to open up in that way, or do you have strategies of getting people to open up?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. It's actually a really good point. When you meet people for the first time, I mean, how do you get them to tell you what you know, they may know, and you wrote in the script, right? And how do you get them to not really get deep enough in the conversation? There are several strategies, but my way of doing interviews is, first of all, uh, I take a position of not knowing everything. I'm not. I don't want to tell them what I know. I want to hear it from them. So that's one thing. The other thing is that I am I in and in, this is very specific also to the way I did this documentary, is I go with a quest, and I ask them, I include them in my search. So they don't know that this is preparation for the interview. I just and sincerely just go to people and tell them, okay, look, in this case, I was saying, look, I have this box of letters. I want to pass it on to my son, and I have no idea how to do that and now just that sets it up for the level of discussion, which is it's a philosophical question. How do you pass memory? So they can't answer on first level because there is no answer. I know that. I know there was no answer. I knew there was no answer, right? So they had to engage and volunteer their point of view if they were going to be part of the discussion. And then it becomes a discussion between, they are in this dance, and then I introduce steps, like I was saying with the Abderrahim Hajin, who I have never spoke with. I had no way of meeting him before, and I had been brought to him by our guide, as you saw, who was, I mean, he was his nephew, and I didn't know who I'm going to be brought to and so on. I didn't even know if he's going to be talking to women, you know. But somehow I figured, okay, if I talk to him about Umberto Eco, he'll probably won't know but they are francophones. So I talked to him about Michel Serres, and I used it in a way that as a bit of a challenge, you know, like I didn't just say, oh, do you know such and such, and what do you think about that? I just said, well, he thinks this. So I introduced Michel Serres, and then the answer came because he was kind of like chasing that fish. You see what I mean? Like he answered to Michel Serres. So suddenly, you know, it just happened. But it so you bring them there not by disclosing your intention or like asking them, oh, please, you know, can you give me like more, but rather you meet them there. You know, if you know that they have that level, you just you meet them where you want them to be, kind of thing. That's how I would say. Like with and this goes the other way as well. Like for instance, with Jean-Luc Buguet, obviously I wouldn't bring up the same things. Jean-Luc Buguet is the guy who jumps in the bin, you know, in the garbage bin. But I was truly so excited about what he was doing. I mean, really, like I was fascinated by the, you know, the whole research and how is he going, and so I wanted to know more. And you know, it's by my interest in him and in what he was doing that he just wanted to show me more. So he, you know, and then when he said, okay, come, you have to come, let's just go to the recycling plant. And we were not allowed to be there, actually. So we sneaked in through the fence, and we were there, and we started filming. And I could see his feet, like, you know, like slightly jumping on the pavement. And I told to my camera person, I was like, he's going to jump, you know, and that was it. You know, I didn't have to do much, then just express my interest in what he was doing, because I was really honestly fascinated by him, you know. So yeah, then it's just, yeah, they just open up. It was a bit more difficult maybe with Brewster Cayley, because I was kind of partial to, I wasn't, there was a part of me that, I mean, I was, as much as I am absolutely blown away by the Internet archives and so on, but I still kind of think that there is a blind side to this kind of race towards accumulation of digital archives. So, and I knew he was aware of it. So he talks about Borges because we talked about Borges right before. And so it just came about that way, you know. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. That provides some really good insight.
Thank you.
Hi. Hello. I'm sorry. My name is Woody.
Hi,
I was here
Woody.
the whole time. I joined a little bit late. And I was coming from campus, so my apologies.
No
But I
problem.
was listening in, and lately I feel like it's kind of been a little bit of a sign for me personally. I take things as like signs in my life, but I've been hearing a lot about like documentary style film, or like trying to learn more about doing things that, because like I find myself struggling to like write down like a story with like dialogue and stuff like that, but I want to kind of hone in on like my personal skill and ability to like talk to people and interview people and actually like reach out or just share different stories without struggling to conjure one. You know what I mean? Just think of a particular story. Like, for example, if I'm creating something that's like a particular genre, like action or drama or comedy, like to think of a particular plot, I find that more difficult for myself. But to play with the real world and the people that I have and create characters based off of that, I find not to be easier for me, but I find it more interesting, more intriguing. You know what I mean? And so I've like our professor showed us a clip of your film that you just showed now the other day in class, and I think the one thing I'm trying to learn now is if I go this route, like in terms of documentary style film, how do I write like how do I organize and write a script for that? Because like, and professor, you might be able to send me some examples for as well, like for the class. But I want to ask you directly, like, how do you go about the process of just like having a script? Because I it's like my idea of documentary style filmmaking is that it's a lot of editing, and that's what I've been told, and you just expressed that as well. Like a lot of what you're going to be doing is the editing part. So the filming just happens, but the editing is kind of what makes up the film. But is there like when you do write a script, like are you writing down the idea that you have? Like is that just an outline for you and then you work with that? Are you writing down questions to ask and are you incorporating that into your script? Like how does that process work? You know?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Well, the thing is that it always starts with an idea. It always starts with something that kind of with a drive, right? So if you are going to meet somebody, why did you choose that person, over everybody else in this world? And you kind of have to be in a dialogue with yourself in that sense as to kind of diving down and finding what's that initial spark. And then this gives you already this is what you start with in writing. And for documentary or it's different than fiction in the sense that you can work more with the well, you can actually, instead of having a script, which was in my case, but I had a script with sequences, but I didn't have the dialogues, if you want. I didn't script the dialogues. That's not how it works. That's why we call it most often, we call it like a development or a treatment. So you kind of say, okay, this is my idea, that's my intention, this is what I think is important to say. Because that's what documentary, I mean, it's like, it's either you want to experience some, I mean, film is experience, right? It's about and it's about emotion as well. So be documentary, even if you have, like in the case of this documentary, I had a lot of I've done a lot of research, but it doesn't really matter because to make a film I had to have emotion. So most of my research is like, forget it, it will never be known in this context, and it's just was just there to kind of help me, prepare me. It's like well, I wouldn't say a boxing game because it's so kind of oppositional, but there is something about preparing a match. You cannot go in the arena and be like theater, let's say. Okay, there is a part of improvisation, but you need to know what is the context, like what. So, and that's what you want to write about, your vision, like how, if it's a documentary that will have, let's say, you're going to follow a character, why is that character, what's that character's what is that character going to unfold? Why did you choose it? Choose them, or a situation, or it could be anything really. Like you can just film, I don't know, I'm just saying, a school over the years. Why? It could be even, actually, I'll give you a very striking example. I have a friend, the documentary filmmaker here in Canada called Robert Morin. He did a very beautiful documentary that it's following the carcass, the dead body of a caribou, as through from the moment it dies to the moment it dissipates into the earth. And it's about all the life that it creates. So it's about death, but it's about life.
Right.
It's a simple proposition, so something like that, of course, you won't write a script. So you won't write like, oh, at this moment in time, it's covered by the snow at this moment in time. It made a feature film that really was shown theatrically and traveled the world. But it came from just the idea, and then what people because you usually write, well, you write for yourself because you want to know what you have to interview yourself, kind of thing, but you also write to get the money. And when you do that, we want to make sure that people who are going to read your proposals know what the film is. They have to kind of like have a feeling of it. They don't need to know exactly at each step how that thing will unfold, but they have to know enough to kind of think, yes, I want to invest in that film, be it, even if it's a public institution, it is kind of a pitching kind of thing.
Right.
So, but sometimes pitching is done not necessarily with only writing, but with a reel, for instance, or a trailer. If you have some footage, just give them a taste of what's going to be, like a little bit about the treatment, or you can place there in your, proposal images. They could be of the subject itself, but you can also choose stuff that's just kind of a mood board.
Right.
You have to obviously mention that as such, but an inspiration, something that gets people to feel what the film is going to be about. And it helps you as well, because we change, as human beings. We keep on changing, we evolve, we in the process, our ideas get changed. So it's really very good to put down your ideas in a way, in a creative writing that would help you remember where you started from, and eventually go back to it, such that you keep, focus and you don't lose your film, something like that, I would say. Is that answering the...
Yeah. You actually
Okay.
answered and gave me more as well. So like I appreciate
All
that.
right.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
All right, good.
But
Great.
I really do appreciate that, because like I'm and even like in class, like I'm always trying to like that's why I found myself getting stuck a lot, because like I have so many ideas that I start and don't finish, or that I try to like execute, or that I think would be good, but I get in my head about it. Like there's so much that I deal with in regards to that. But like I'm like, as time goes by, I'm like learning and developing, like, okay, this is kind of like I'm learning why I get like that. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
certain things may not work for me, but I notice that I like certain things that do, or like where my skill sets lie, because I also enjoy being in front of the camera as well. So it's just like, okay,
Oh,
maybe I
cool.
can put that to good use. You know what I mean? And like actually get
Awesome.
myself out there and be in front of that camera within something that I create. But it doesn't have to be like a certain structure, or like, you know what I mean? I'm trying to learn to explore that, but also I still want
Yeah.
to be able to have those skills, but it's like I'm trying to figure out what works best for me in that realm. And I do appreciate my professor because he allows us to kind of explore that as well. So
That's great. Yeah. So yeah, I was going to show you. This is my ideas,
yeah,
like it, and when they're there when you need them, you go back to them and so on, you develop. But there are these, I must say, there are these types of writing that are specific to cinema that go sometimes. I mean, I find quite helpful to go through the steps, like to write first like a one-liner, then you try to write a synopsis, then you make an outline, then you try to develop it, and sometimes you change things and you go back and revisit that outline or like the one-liner or whatnot, and it just kind of, they're your tools.
right,
It's also for that, not necessarily for pitching or something. It just kind
right.
of, yeah, there are steps. So
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
thank you for the question.
So we are officially over time, but I do want to open up for one last question if anybody has one that they want to ask. If not, we will let
Oh,
Oana go.
it's kind of like
Woody is back. Okay, Woody, go
I'm
ahead,
sorry.
man.
I just want to ask, okay, because like I've been considering like doing this like out of college, but like genuinely curious, like what is it like in terms of the film industry in Canada? Like how do you feel about that? Because like I was thinking I would like of like not like just I mean I kind of want to move up there to like, you know, see what things are like and get a new not start, but I don't know, like go abroad, you know what I'm saying, get a different experience. And so I'm just curious, like what is the industry like?
Yeah, so, well, as you know, I mean, I'm an immigrant myself. I grew up in Eastern Europe. I came to Canada almost 27 years ago. So, um, the it's an interesting place to be. I feel actually incredibly lucky because there are such institutions as the National Filmboard that produced this film 100%, which is quite unique in the world.
Right.
This money is coming from the government, and it's basically um, uh, under the Ministry of Heritage. So it's quite extraordinary. But at the same time, so there are these agencies that are helping Canadians create and bring their vision across, and also distribute their work. So like it's the National Film Board, there is the Canada Council for the Arts, then there are regional institutions. So this is very helpful. At the same time, I would say that when as much as it's helpful to for a certain type of independent author kind of work, it's a bit harder when you get to another level. So you won't find in Canada easily, or in Canada alone, easily money for very big productions because of this the way the financing is thought. There are less private investors because because this is seen as a domain that's supported by the government and by the provincial governments and such. So it's kind of it's a give and take kind of thing. In the States, I the there is more struggle in a way to finance projects that are very independent, that are, you know, artists driven, smaller projects and so on. But there is more financing for bigger projects with private investors and paths towards that do not exist in Canada.
Gotcha.
So yeah, it depends where you stand. Yeah. But also, I must say, right now, unfortunately, Canada is, I don't know what they are doing. There was a country where we were, you know, we are a country of immigrants, receiving a lot of immigrants. And now there is a freeze on permanent residencies. I don't know what's going to be. We will also have elections, but yeah, they make it harder to, but that doesn't affect, you know, collaboration with co-production. That's still very, very strong. And National Filmboard of Canada is also doing co-productions. So there are, you know, paths to Telefilm Canada, Sodec, all of that is kind of, they work conjointly with the States. There are a lot of productions from the States that are shot in Canada. So there are ways, I'm just saying, about the path my parents took like 30 years ago. It seems like it's no longer so easy to as it was for them, unfortunately. Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Of course.
Thank you so much, all of you, for your questions. Thank you so much to Oana and this amazing film and this time that you've spent with us. It's been wonderful. I've learned so much, and I'm definitely taking all this knowledge with me, and I'm keeping it here. And it's not going on a phone or anything, and I think everybody else is going to do the same. So thank you for giving us that wisdom.
Thank you for inviting me, and thank you for your questions. It was really nice discussion, and yeah, I'm very glad if that helped.
Yeah. And we look forward to the possibility of you coming in person, if that's ever a possibility. And
absolutely,
please give my best to everyone there, and
sure,
safe travels, and we hope to see many more of your films soon.
Thank you so much, Pirooz, and yes, I really hope to. Who knows, maybe join one day in person. And good luck to you all with your projects.
Thank you so much.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.